Good day all, RobotnikHolmes here. So, as my anti-self from the last video noted, we've reached the part of the Archie comics lifespan where writer Ken Penders has joined the crew. Now, I don't like the man, nor respect any of his practices or jabs at others in the industry. But don't worry, I'm not going to let that get in the way of how I analyse his stuff. Sure, Penders was just kind of hired onto the crew and went about introducing alternate universes and family members, not to mention knockoff bad guys that took themselves too seriously for audiences to sympathise with. But I must note, despite his name being on here, he was technically just a co-writer to Mike Kantarovich. Was this guy a bad writing detergent? Or am I just overlooking a former writer's past contributions to a comic series that started in the 90s? Well, I suppose there's only one proper way to find out. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between. We're going to take a look at, and hypothetically judge, issues number 13 and 14. Hey guys, did you happen to know? Sonic is super fast. Just listen to what these guys have to say. I'm sorry, who are you guys? Are you Rugrats characters who lost their way to the set? Actually, jokey jokes aside, there is one thing to note on this cover. You know how Dave Manick always draws Sonic's head and then have his spines just awkwardly behind him? Well, now he's adapted to the official Sonic art at the time. His head is all spines, baby. Please don't quote me on that. Ooh, look at this. The first story, This Island Hedgehog. What, this Island Hedgehog? It's the loose Sonic Free tie-in that has freedom fighter sidekick Tails driving a plane like the one from the games. Even though in this universe he's still a dumb kid. And Sonic's looking his usual self on the way to Angel Island. Though his head kind of looks like that Windows bug where it makes after images behind it. As they approach and think about what makes the island float like that, they are watched by a mysterious Knuckles who decides, hey, let's roll out the unwelcome mat. Oh, I guess he really meant that. Sonic and Tails bail out of the plane, and while shooketh, they decide to traverse on foot, even though Dr. Robotnik's machines are everywhere, which is a nice addition even though they are also off-coloured. The duo escapes into the nearest puddle, and I guess they find themselves in Hydro City Zone. We get another one of those "Gaming Jesus, take the wheel" moments, but I guess it's too late, as the two seem to drown in the dark depths of the blank blue backdrop. They soon find themselves tied up in a dark room, like they're being fricking interrogated, and knock knock, Knuckles is here. Just like in the game, it seems Knuckles was tricked by Dr. Robotnik to think that Sonic and Tails were mean little thieves. The Red Bucket decides to deal with the apparent bad guys by letting them free so that he can hunt them down himself. Knuckles, since when were you this predatory? Also, it is shown that the evil Dr. Robotnik has Angel Island's power source, a Chaos Emerald. Yeah, not the Master Emerald like in the games, or even one of the 7 MacGuffins that the comics had already loosely established, just the Chaos Emerald. You buggers need to do some research more. Anyway, Knuckles discovers that Robotnik had stolen the emerald and was the villain all along, which gets Knuckles so mad he makes this face. I guess because Robotnik sucks at hiding his base of operations, Sonic is able to steal the emerald back. Him and Knuckles beat the crap out of Swatbots in a hasty conclusion after quickly making amends, and the airship starts to falter. The heroes make a short escape, while the big bad and the others are subjected to... Wait, what is that? Is that the face of Bender from Futurama? Sonic and Tails' plane is also fixed, allowing the two to return to their Sat AM setting, and Knuckles waves them off. It's not going to be the last time we see him, I can tell you that much. In the second story, Space in Yo Face, we get Sonic carving a sculpture with his spines, which is a running theme in the story, trust me. However, their fun and games are interrupted when Sally Acorn comes running in, telling the others that Dr. Robotnik has another mean old plan. This one being to roboticize everything from an orbital space station, as well as interrupt all TVs with infomercials. Jeez, show don't tell, Angelo. In a scenario reminiscent of the Sat AM cartoons, the freedom fighters go sneaking into Robotropolis and see the dreaded Robostorm satellite. I don't think it's any coincidence that this looks like the Death Egg from Sonic 3. Sonic distracts the Swatbots with his usual antics, allowing the freedom fighters to get inside. They take out their tools and prepare to reenact an episode of Home Improvement when, oh dear, Dr. Robotnik is coming right this way. Should the heroes take on the villain, and Snively himself? What are you, stupid? No, they need to take off into space to get away, of course. In outer space, the freedom fighters dink around the 100 moons of Mobius, as Rob and Sniv trail behind them. You guys still feel like this was a good idea? Both ships go to land on the planet Muckery, lovely name there, and the two opposing forces have a battle in the mud. Luckily, Sonic has enough blocks of sand to craft some sort of Robotnik-like statue. It's so great, it's so marvellous, it's so... Silly as a means of distracting the villain so that the heroes can escape. The story ends with them not wanting to eat mud. It's the same. Sometimes I forget we're still technically in the era of the comics where the story and progression of plots don't matter. The first story, penned by Penders and friends, is not only a shoddy retelling of the synopsis of the game it's based on, but it fits less into the already established world. In the games, Knuckles is tricked by Robotnik, and look at that face, even I believe him. But if he saw this guy, with his evil red eyes and half-roboticized physique, I'd be like, get the hell off my island! What little good I can salvage from both stories is that sometimes there are funny lines once in a while. Kinda wish the characters expressed more of their dynamics instead of making light of puns though. The second story, using episode trope number 164, going into space, is certainly something but otherwise pretty typical of a plot. For both stories and their lack of really stepping out, I shall award it a 2. Looks like they brought Dave Manak back on board after his break. Can't say I really enjoy his art in any setting other than small, inconsequential stories. Mulwiney does a marvellous job as usual with the story he was given. He's so used to penciling the freedom fighters sneaking around, but even when the story changes to, say, them going around space for some reason, he never really loses focus and keeps up the good art. Now that's admirable. What's worth noting is that this issue introduced Knuckles the Echidna to the series. Sure, just like in the games, he's basically just some dude who hangs on a floating continent and guards a shiny rock, but that's kind of true to how he was in the mid-90s. Also, the artist didn't know how to handle his scowl that he wore in the artwork, so he just went with giving him that expression all the time. Actually, wait, Ken Penders wrote the first story that Knuckles appeared in, as well as the last issue where he put Sonic and Sally's romance in the limelight. Oh my god, he was just planting the seeds of what's to come. Either way, everything character related was rather average, but the art was pretty nice. It gets a 3. So that leaves issue number 13 with a total of 5 out of 10. Well, that was pretty sodding average. Come on writers, when are you going to step up your game?
Okay.
Not you Penders, go sit down. So with Knuckles the Echidna fresh in our minds, let's filter it out with some good old mediocrity. The cover for number 14 doesn't lie at least. Since the story is going to focus on Tails, it makes sense for him to try and insert himself into the title of the comic. The first story for this issue, Tails' Taste for Power, begins in Rota's greenhouse. Tails acts like Sonic's #1 fanboy as usual, and wants Sonic to promote him to leader, but the Hedgehog instead just puts him on watering can duty. Tails spots a yummy fruit hanging from a tree and Fox gonna nom on them dank foods. So when Sonic and Rota return, they find Tails having gained intelligence and watered the plants perfectly. It's revealed that he has gotten a bigger brain thanks to eating fruit from a weird tree called the Mobian Tree of Wisdom. Huh, why not eat it yourself, dumbasses? No time for that. Sally and Bunny are running from a giant robot. It's a good thing they don't have necks, otherwise they'd be beheaded. As expected, the super smart Tails is able to shut it off somehow, and when asked how he did it, he begins to go on a long-winded explanation of aerodynamics and velocity in... Jesus, our little fox boy also becomes super smug, proclaiming himself the head honcho of the team. It also aspires him to go after Dr. Robotnik and Snively himself to defeat their biggest threat once and for all. However, his intelligence seems to wear off the moment he steps in. Womp womp. Of course, Sonic goes in to save his little buddy from the Doctor, but instead of using his super speed or kicking their butts in any way, Sonic instead bluffs that the medal Tails was wearing earlier is a bomb. We get a few panels of intense glances in this standoff, and then the big bad just gives in and lets Sonic have Tails back. All's well and ends well, huh Tails? It's time for the issue's second story, which seems to be entirely focused on the female freedom fighters. Written by Ken Penders, with sexist dialogue. Wait, what? So Robotnik plots to lure Sally, Acorn and Bunny Rabbit away from Sonic, and he intends to do so by means of a fashion mall. But don't worry, despite the two getting kidnapped and held by SWAT bots, as well as be severely underestimated by Robotnik's sexism, that doesn't mean the two can't kick ass. Wow, we haven't seen anything like this from them in the comic yet, and I love it. Even Robotnik's surprised. Anyway, the two are able to deal with the villain's forces easily, and tie them up in their own shell of a mall, and the story ends on a joke on Sonic's expanse. Okay. So, what do you get with filler stories that don't really amount to much other than to fill out the joke quota? Nothing, really. The first story focusing on Tails was neat, even if him being super smart still got him into trouble. It's kind of character development-ish, but just kind of. At the very least, its structure is different from the others that came before it. The second story, I still don't know how to really comprehend it. Was it progressive and full of social commentary? Was it more of a slim mockery of gender roles? I don't know, but I feel gross reading it. The part where Sally and Bunny beat up Robotnik's robots was probably like the best thing in the entire issue though, not gonna lie. The story gets a simple 2. Despite the dull stories, at least the art is pretty neat. Mawini, once again, does quite well for such simplistic settings, and the characters are as expressive as ever. While Tails got some attention in this issue, it was really by means of temporary smartness. And it wears off anyway, so what's the point? Though again, I really like Sally and Bunny showing up. Like, their fighting skills had not been established yet in the book, and by Penders of all people. For the art and characters, it gets a 2. I've been saving the best for last. Okay, there's more than 2 stories in this issue, but in truth, this one isn't really one to write home about. I'm serious, the word bubbles in this are actually entirely blank due to it being for a competition. Now, I'm no perfect writer or joke wizard, but I do know someone who has filled this out. Insert shameless plug here, Hedgehogs Can't Swim, a blog that's also reviewing all the Archie Sonic comics in release order. Link is in the description. They've done a better job at thinking of what to put in these word bubbles, so with their permission... Tails, do you think God exists, or are we just mindlessly blithering through an empty existence without purpose or reason? Sonic, I'm more concerned about why you're using a cherry popsicle as a fishing lure. Oh yeah. Name of boat? Holy shit. A crab is piloting the submarine. Lol, why are my eyeballs coming out of my mouth? Captain, the furries are above us, probably about to make a Star Trek reference since this is technically a Penders story. It's a good thing this word bubble is here to block the massive erection I have right now. Look Sonic, by cleverly using this golf ball as a lure, I have captured a stupid fish, who clearly has no idea what the fuck is going on. Soon we will dine upon its flesh. But isn't it weird that we live in a world where anthropomorphic animals eat other animals and are clearly not anthropomorphic and— Silence fool, I'm bending my fishing rod into an uppercase letter C. Egads, a large robotic whale has emerged and intends to devour us. Though I am capable of moving at supersonic speeds, I am instead using this time to elaborate quite verbosely about the situation. I have defecated slightly in terror. Sound effect. This steering wheel isn't actually attached to anything, and yet I wield it still. Look at me, I'm a boat captain. There's a second word bubble here for some reason. Yiffin hell, fur fans. Should we die, Tails? I want you to know that I have always hated you. Queef. This near-death experience has done nothing to placate the suffering existential dread I feel every waking minute of the day. Just now, I discovered that Sonic, the hedgehog I admire in a way that's kind of weird truthfully, has secretly despised— Shut your fat mouth, Tails. Look at how I bend these boat hose into lumpy yellow wheels. Robotnik is about to beach his robot whale, which sounds like a sexual metaphor of some sort. Onomatopoeia. Splooge. Looks like you're all wet, Robotnik. Victory just sailed away from you. See how easily I defeated you? This whole scheme was rather fishy. Send this one to bed. Where did that platform come from? Where did this camera come from? What happened to Robotnik? Oh god, reality is folding in on itself. Hail Satan. That was fun. So, despite that admittedly fun joyride of juvenile humour, I must give number 14 as a whole a 4 out of 10. Yeah, this one was mildly worse than the previous issue. I guess they weren't trying to get better at this point, like most comics, and really, you can skip these issues if you were ever to read them. I mean, unless you're a die-hard fan of Sonic and comics, and want to see things that get referenced later on. Either way, I thank you for watching me judge these old comics. I can tell you they won't get better anytime soon, but hey, that's what the journey's for, to see if there are truly diamonds in the rough. In the next video, I shall take a close look at issues number 15 and 16. Stay tuned.